I want to tell you about the day Ambassador Lisa Martinez turned off her smile. I was in the chamber when it happened. I had been watching her smile for 5 years. I had watched her smile through insults that would have ended careers on my world. I had watched her smile through votes that denied her people basic rights. I had watched her smile through 100 sessions of an assembly that treated humanity like a child who should be grateful for any attention from adults. She was very good at the smile. It was warm. It was practiced. It did everything a diplomatic smile is supposed to do. It communicated patience. It communicated goodwill. It communicated a willingness to keep trying, even when the other side was not trying at all. It also, I now understand, communicated something else. It communicated that she had made a choice. The choice to smile instead of the other thing. For 5 years she chose the smile. Then 50,000 humans died in the space colony belt. And she stopped choosing the smile. I am filing this report as an official account of what I witnessed as an outside observer to the Galactic Council. I am filing it because the events of that day need to be documented accurately. I am also filing it because I believe what happened deserves to be understood rather than merely feared. The galaxy has spent the years since that day being afraid of what humanity revealed. I think they should have been paying attention much earlier. I arrived at the central station as a junior observer 14 years ago. My role was simple: watch, record, report. My people have maintained observer status at the Galactic Council for 200 years. We do not vote. We do not advocate. We watch. I have watched a great many sessions of the Galactic Council. I have watched trade disputes that lasted decades. I have watched territorial negotiations that consumed entire careers. I have watched species argue about the precise definition of words in 3 different languages simultaneously, while somewhere outside the chamber beings were dying over whatever the words meant. I had seen a great deal of what galactic politics produces when the powerful decide the rules. I had never seen anything quite like what they did to humanity. It was not dramatic. That is what I want to be clear about. There was no single moment of cruelty. There was no declaration of contempt. It was quieter than that. It was the tone of voice used when a human delegate spoke. The way certain council members would glance at each other while Ambassador Martinez was talking. The way agenda items brought by the human delegation were routinely scheduled last and ran out of time before they were addressed. Small things. Individually, deniable, collectively, unmistakable, I filed reports about it. My superiors acknowledged them. Nothing changed. This was the way the council worked. The powerful set the terms. The less powerful adapted or left. Humanity had not been powerful enough to change the terms, and so they adapted. Ambassador Martinez adapted better than anyone I had ever watched. She studied every delegate. She learned their customs, their preferences, their pressure points. She found common ground in places where common ground should not have existed. She was, by any objective measure, the finest diplomat I had ever observed in that chamber. And they dismissed her anyway. Because the dismissal was never about her performance. It was about what she represented. A species that had not yet proven it deserved a seat at the table. They had decided that, before she arrived. Before any of them had spent 5 minutes learning what humanity actually was. I thought about that a great deal in the years before the incident. I think about it even more now. The day began like any other session, 70 delegates in their assigned positions, the translation systems running, the ceremonial lighting engaged. The first speaker arrived with his movements already hurried, which indicates a prepared position on multiple topics. The war leader landed on his platform and immediately spread his wings, a territorial display, routine for him. The machine counselor's light sensors ran their calibration cycle. Ambassador Martinez arrived exactly on time. She wore a dark uniform, professional, the kind that signals authority rather than ceremony. Her aide, Jake Peterson, took his position to her right. She had a data pad. She had a pen. She had the expression she always had: attentive, prepared, diplomatically warm. I noted all of this in my log. I note everything. The first hour of the session covered mining rights in the colony belt. It was not the first time this had been discussed. It had come up in 7 previous sessions. Each time, the council had tabled it for further review. This time, they voted. The vote gave the opposing group exclusive access to the outer asteroid fields of the colony belt, the same asteroid fields that 3 human colony ships traveled through on their standard routes. Ambassador Martinez objected. She cited the existing transit agreements. She cited the colonial boundary charter. She cited the legal precedents from 11 comparable situations. The main leader said the motion had passed. She sat down. She wrote something in her data pad. I could not see what she wrote. I have wondered many times. 3 days later, the colony ship New Horizon entered the belt on its standard route. The ship carried 50,000 people. 15,000 of them were children. The youngest was 3 years old. Her name was Emma Chen. She wanted to be a doctor, like her mother. The New Horizon never reached its destination. The emergency session was called within hours. I arrived early. I always arrive early. The chamber was half full. Several delegates had sent representatives rather than attend personally, which tells you something about how seriously they expected to take the proceedings. Ambassador Martinez arrived with Jake Peterson. They sat down. She put her data pad on the table in front of her. She folded her hands. She looked the same as she always looked. That was what I noticed first. She looked exactly the same. I have been doing this for 14 years. I know what grief looks like on most species. I know what controlled anger looks like. I know what desperation looks like. She looked none of those things. She looked like she was doing math. The session opened. She presented the evidence calmly. The energy signatures, the debris pattern, the flight plan that had been shared with council members, the attack ships that fled to foreign mining stations. The first leader said his people could not be held responsible for independent criminal elements. The war leader said civilian vessels should not travel through contested areas without military escort. The machine counselor said emotional appeals did not change the facts of space travel safety. Ambassador Martinez was quiet for 30 seconds. I timed it. 30 seconds. Then she said 2 words, polite mode off. I wrote it in my log with a timestamp because I did not know what it meant, and I always document what I do not understand. I understood it within the next 60 seconds. She looked around the chamber. At every face. She had learned every one of them in 5 years. She knew their languages, their customs, their corruption, their fears. She said, for 30 years, humanity has been very polite. She said, we chose that. She said, it was always a choice. Jake Peterson activated a holographic display. The chamber went silent. On the display, a space station. Massive, armed, one of 12, he said. Built over 20 years. Hidden on every world the council thought they knew. In every system they thought they understood. Watching, learning, Remembering, I sat in my observer position and I thought about every session I had attended, every dismissal, every insult, every tabled agenda item, every vote that had gone against humanity while they smiled and accepted it. They had been documenting all of it, every single moment. She walked slowly around the chamber. I have reviewed the footage many times. What strikes me most, watching it, is the pace. She was not aggressive. She was not loud. She moved the way someone moves when they have all the time in the world and all the information and no reason to hurry. She stopped in front of the first leader. She said, "We know about the corruption in your military command structure. We know which officers can be bought and which are simply incompetent. We know about the 3 different rebellion movements in your outer colonies that you have been trying to hide." His movements went completely still. She moved to the war leader. She said, "We know your warrior culture is entirely dependent on payments from weaker species. We know your homeworld's economy collapses in 6 months if those payments stop." His hands tightened involuntarily, scratching marks into his platform. She moved to the machine counselor. She said, "We know your collective is running low on the rare metals that power your mechanical bodies. We know about the resource wars you have been planning." His sensors dimmed to almost nothing. She returned to the center of the chamber. She said, "While you were treating us like ignorant children, we were learning everything about each of you, your strengths, your weaknesses, your dirty secrets, your plans." She said, "We remember every insult, every dismissal, every time you laughed at us while we were watching you." The chamber did not erupt immediately. There was a moment, I remember it precisely, where everything was simply still. 70 delegates processing what they had just been told, the translation systems working, the implications landing. And then the chaos began. Because they understood in that moment that this was not a bluff. This had never been a bluff. Humanity had been playing a very long game, and they had just been told the rules. She activated her communicator. She said, "Admiral Morrison, execute Phase 1. Across the galaxy, ships that had looked like cargo vessels and research platforms activated military-grade sensor and weapon systems. Trade routes that had been protected by alien patrols found themselves under human control. Strategic positions that had seemed unimportant were revealed as key military assets. It had been planned, not in response to the colony ship attack, in preparation for the possibility that something like the attack might someday happen, because humanity had always known this day might come. They had simply been hoping it would not. Ambassador Martinez looked at the recording devices broadcasting the session across the galaxy. She said, "Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council." She said, "All treaties and agreements are void as of this moment." She said, "What happens next depends entirely on how quickly you learn to treat us with the respect that 50,000 dead civilians deserved." Then she picked up her datapad, her pen, and her files. She walked to the door. She stopped. She did not turn around. She said, "To the room, the old system is dead." She said, "What we build to replace it will be better for everyone." She said, "Except those who profited from cruelty." Then she left. I sat in my observer position in the silence that followed. All around me, 70 delegates were discovering that humanity had known about them, really known, the kind of knowing that takes years of quiet watching for 3 decades. I thought about the smile. I thought about how long she had worn it. I thought about what she must have felt, sitting in that chair year after year, learning everything, watching everything, choosing the smile instead of this. I wrote in my log, "Today the Galactic Council learned that patience is not weakness." I underlined it. 6 months have passed since that day. The council that dismissed Ambassador Martinez for 5 years is now formally irrelevant. The species that laughed at human diplomacy are now seeking human protection. The systems that were built to exclude humanity are being rebuilt under human guidance. It did not take war. It took knowledge. It took 30 years of a species deciding to learn everything rather than demand respect. I asked Ambassador Martinez, once we had developed something like a professional relationship, during my time as an observer, I asked her when they had decided to build the hidden stations, the intelligence network, the hidden fleet. She looked at me for a moment. She said, "We built the fleet when we joined the council." She said, "We knew what the council was. We had been watching it for years before we applied for membership. We knew how it worked. We knew who it served." I said, "Then why join at all?" She said, "Because the only way to change a system from the outside is to become strong enough that it fears you. But the only way to change it from the inside is to understand it completely first." She said, "We needed to do both." I thought about that for a long time. The thing that I keep returning to is not the hidden ships, not the intelligence network, not the military precision with which Phase 1 executed. It is the smile. 5 years of sessions. 5 years of insults absorbed and converted to data. 5 years of watching and learning and choosing patience over the other thing. That is the hardest thing. Anyone can build a ship. Not everyone can sit in a room where they are being dismissed and mocked and treated as less than they are, and choose deliberately to keep learning instead of reacting, to keep smiling, to keep watching, waiting for the moment when knowledge and strength would intersect and the smile would no longer be necessary. She waited 5 years. The galaxy had 30 years of warning. It just was not paying attention. They are paying attention now. If you believe that the most dangerous thing in any room is the one who has been watching longest, subscribe. We are just getting started.